Welcome. In the lecture 5, last 10 minutes, my voice was not recorded properly due to some technical issue. So I would like to take that 10 minutes portion now in this session first, and then later I'll continue with the ventricles of brain. So now let's see here the forebrain. So here the forebrain that consists of cerebrum, so which is the largest portion of the brain, and this cerebrum is divided into two cerebral hemispheres. So it has two halves. Okay, so this is the right cerebral hemisphere, and this side it is left cerebral hemisphere. And these two cerebral hemispheres are separated by a longitudinal fissure. These two cerebral appears to be separate, but actually at the base of these cerebral hemispheres, the two cerebral hemispheres are connected by corpus callosum. So two cerebral hemispheres are connected by corpus callosum. Okay, now the in the cerebrum corresponding to the bones of the cranium, so we have four different regions of each of these cerebral hemisphere. So each of these cerebral hemisphere shows four regions. One, it is called the frontal lobe, and another one called parietal lobe, and another one called occipital lobe, and another one called temporal lobe. So these are the four regions here. So now in this picture, okay, so all this blue color region, so this is the frontal lobe. So all this is the frontal lobe. Is frontal lobe, and this portion here is the parietal lobe. So this portion is parietal lobe, and behind the parietal lobe is the occipital lobe. So this portion is occipital lobe, and here this portion, what we see here is the temporal lobe. So this is temporal lobe. So these are the regions of cerebral hemispheres corresponding to the cranium. So total four we have: the frontal, then parietal, and then occipital, and then we have is temporal lobe. And here these lobes are separated by fissures. So let's say between frontal and parietal lobe, frontal lobe and parietal lobe. So between these two there is a fissure. So we can see here this is the fissure which separates the frontal lobe and parietal lobe. So that fissure which separates the frontal lobe and parietal lobe is called fissure of Rolando. It's called fissure of Rolando, or it's called central sulcus, called central sulcus. Then similarly, between frontal lobe and between frontal lobe and temporal lobe, frontal lobe and temporal lobe. So between these two, we have is fissure of Sylvius, is a fissure of Sylvius. So this is also called lateral cerebral sulcus, lateral cerebral sulcus. So we can see that one here. So this is the lateral cerebral sulcus. So between the frontal lobe, so I'm just drawing it thicker so you can see the difference. Okay, so this is the lateral cerebral sulcus. So here is another, so that's what I saw. I said that fissure of Rolando. So just, so this is the fissure of Rolando, and this one is the lateral cerebral sulcus, lateral cerebral sulcus. And again we have between uh, the parietal and occipital lobe. So here we have is between the parietal and occipital lobe. So this between the between parietal lobe and occipital lobe. So between these two lobes is a parieto-occipital sulcus, is parieto-occipital sulcus is present. So this is the parieto-occipital sulcus. Okay, right. And the cerebrum remains separate from cerebellum. So here again, here also there is a separation here. Okay, so it completely different, it is completely separate from the right cerebrum. This is the cerebellum. So here is cerebellum, and of course this portion will run as a spinal cord. Here this cerebellum and cerebrum are separate, okay, by a transverse fissure. So here what we see is a transverse fissure. So this one is transverse fissure. Okay, right. So next we will see diencephalon, about diencephalon, that is the part of forebrain. So this diencephalon is also called interbrain, is also called interbrain. And this the roof shows a highly vascularized portion. The roof of this diencephalon, okay, the roof shows highly vascularized, which means supplied with a lot of blood. So it is supplied with a lot of blood, and that highly vascularized structure is called anterior choroid plexus, anterior choroid plexus. So these anterior choroid plexus is the one that is involved in production of CSF. So it produces CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, and along with that there is one more structure called pineal gland. So there is a pineal gland also present on the roof of this diencephalon. Here the pineal gland will produce, uh, a hormone called melatonin, and this melatonin is responsible or controls the sleep wake cycle. So we'll see in the next chapter uh, about all these hormones. Okay, and this diencephalon has different regions, like it has, right, epithalamus. Okay, then thalamus, and then hypothalamus. Different regions present, okay, under this diencephalon. So here this thalamus will form around 80% of diencephalon. So it forms around 80% of diencephalon, and this one is a relay center. So it acts as a relay center or sensory switchboard. Okay, so that's what it receives all those sensory information and transmits them to cerebrum. So here, so the meaning of this is it receives all sensory information and transmits all sensory information and transmits them to the cerebrum and transmits them to the cerebrum. And the thalamus acts as an interpretation center. So it acts as interpretation center. So for some sensory impulses, some sensory impulses. So those sensory impulses like uh, pain, then temperature, then to light and pressure, etc. So to which, okay, it acts as an interpretation center. And one more point. So here I'm showing that again the cerebral hemispheres of the brain. So this is right cerebral hemisphere, and this is a left cerebral hemisphere, and say this is the ventral side. Okay, and this is the dorsal side. And now you can see there is the longitudinal fissure separating. Okay, so there is a gap between the left and right cerebral hemispheres, and this is the longitudinal fissure. Is longitudinal fissure. Okay, so that's about the missing portion. Okay, so where audio was not clear. Okay, so fine, we'll come back to our normal regular, okay, topic. So that is a ventricle. So I need to discuss about ventricles of the brain. That we'll see it now. So the next one, we shall see ventricles of brain. So coming to this ventricles of brain, so these are actually right spaces inside the brain and filled with okay, fluids. So these ventricles are total 4 in number. So 4 ventricles are present, and there are paracels, and these paracels are 2 in number. And then is diacetyl, and third type is myelocele. So this is 1 in number, and this is also 1 in number. So total you have 4 ventricles of the brain. Okay, so these paracells are present in the cerebral hemisphere. So here you can see in this picture, right? These are paracells. So this is the paracells. Okay, and these are actually present in the cerebral hemispheres, left and right cerebral hemispheres, and you see you are able to see only on one side. There is one more present on another side. Okay, so that is left and right paracells. So here, so these will be right and left paracells, and these are located in cerebral hemispheres, each in one cerebral hemisphere. Okay, so cerebral hemisphere. Okay, right. And of course you can also call these paracells with another name, also called lateral ventricles, also called lateral ventricles. So there are two lateral ventricles, each in one in cerebral hemisphere. So the left cerebral hemisphere will have one paracell or one lateral ventricle, and the right one will have one more paracell. So both are two in number. And now these two paracells are in connection with the diaceil. So the two paracells are in connection with the okay diaceil, right? So here you find that third ventricle. So this is 1 and 2 ventricles. So this is 1 and 2 ventricles. The diaceil is the third ventricle. The diaceil is the third ventricle. We need to remember the third ventricle means it is diaceil, and the myocele means the fourth ventricle. So first 1 and 2 ventricles will be the paracells. Okay, and here you can see the diaceil. Okay, so this is the right, the third ventricle diaceil, and these are first 1 and 2 ventricles. So they are paracells. Okay, and then the fourth ventricle, of course the fourth ventricle, so here it is located. So this is the fourth ventricle, and it is myelocele. The fourth ventricle is myelocele. Now here the diaceil, it is present, it is located in diencephalon. So the third ventricle, that is diaceil, is located in third located in diencephalon, so this is the third ventricle. Diaceil is located in diencephalon. And coming to this myelocele, so this myelocele is it's is present in medulla oblongata. So this is located in medulla oblongata. Okay, so now we understood that paracells are located in cerebral hemispheres, the diaceil is located in the diencephalon, and the myelocele is located in the medulla oblongata. So the myelocele is fourth ventricle. So this is fourth ventricle. Now all these ventricles are connected with one another, and here when coming to this paracel is in connection with the diacel. So here you can see okay um, so we can see here a small connection that exists between the paracels and the third ventricle, that is okay diacel. So this is third, this is fourth, okay, and this is called okay the two paracels and the diacel are connected by a narrow passage. So this narrow passage is called the foramen of Monro. It's called the foramen of Monro. So this is the foramen of Monro that connects okay between the paracels and the diacel. Okay, so two paracels are connected with the are connected with diacel by means of okay foramen of Monro. So by means of a narrow passage that's called foramen of Monro. And at the okay similarly, so here we have another connection that lies between the diacel and also the myelocele. So this one, a narrow passage again that connects the diacel and myelocele, is called aqueduct of Sylvius. It's called aqueduct of Sylvius. Right, so I'll just mention, so the diacel and myelocele are connected by okay aqueduct of Sylvius. So this is also called cerebral aqueduct. It's called cerebral aqueduct. So we have studied that this narrow passage will be passing through the midbrain. So in the midbrain, we find this aqueduct of Sylvius or cerebral aqueduct. Now, the paracels, the diacels, and myelocele all are filled with the CSF. So here, all these are filled with the CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. And again, the last one, that is myelocele. So the myelocele will be continuous with the central canal. So here it is not ending here. We need to keep in mind that the myelocele is continuous continuous with the central canal, is continuous with the central canal of spinal cord, is continuous with the central canal of spinal cord. So that is what okay, and these all will be filled with the cerebrospinal fluid. So the cerebrospinal fluid from the spinal cord enters into it, okay, and again this one returns into the spinal cord. So there is a circulation of the CSF that takes place all through these okay structures, ventricles of the brain, and even with the central canal okay of spinal cord. So um, I'll just mention, so central canal of spinal cord. So that's all about the ventricles of brain. Next we'll see about spinal cord. Okay, so this spinal cord extends from medulla oblongata, extends from medulla oblongata, okay, to the last vertebra of vertebral column, and it gives off okay, spinal nerves. So here the spinal nerves arise from spinal cord. So you'll see all those spinal nerves and all later, right? Okay, when we take transverse section of spinal cord, so we'll see, so we'll say something like this, right? And here coming to spinal cord, right, the gray matter and the white matter will be opposite to that of uh, brain. Here the gray matter will be inner side, so it will be inner side, whereas the white matter will be, okay, uh, on outer side. So that gray matter we can, okay, see here. So it will be of a butterfly shape, okay. So this is how we see the gray matter. So this is outside white matter, and this is gray matter. At the center here we have central canal. So this is the central canal. So just now we have seen this central canal is filled with the CSF. So it's filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Here this side will take it as the posterior, okay, so this side is posterior or the dorsal side. So posterior or dorsal side, and the opposite will be anterior or ventral side. Or ventral side. Now on the dorsal side there is a, okay, a median sulcus. So there is a, okay, sulcus here. So this small groove is called the posterior median sulcus. It's called posterior median sulcus, and opposite to that we have another groove, and this is called anterior, okay, median fissure, called anterior median fissure. So it's called anterior median fissure. So next here this is dorsal horn, and this is the ventral horn. Okay, so the afferent pathways, okay, will enter through this dorsal side here. Okay, so that we'll see it later. And so this will be the efferent pathway. So this is efferent pathway, efferent pathway, and this will be the efferent pathway. Efferent pathway. So here the efferent pathway is the sensory pathway, whereas the efferent pathway is motor pathway. Okay, right. So just like the brain, where it is covered by three meninges, the spinal cord is also covered by three meninges. So right, the inner one will be the pia mater. So here is the pia mater. So it is present all over. So here I'm not showing it all over, just on one side I'm drawing it. So this is the pia mater, and then okay, so in the middle we have arachnoid, and on the outer that is okay, dura mater. So this is the dura mater, and this one is arachnoid matter, and the innermost one is the pia mater. So just like how we have seen in case of a brain covered by meninges, here also there will be three meninges, and again in the similar way, the in the brain, the pia mater and arachnoid. So between pia mater and arachnoid. So between these two layers we have is CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, flows between the arachnoid and pia mater. Flows between arachnoid and pia mater. So here is the presence of okay, CSF. Okay, next up, the spinal cord, as I told, it extends from the medulla oblongata to the last vertebra. So here, I'll say that instead of last vertebra of the vertebral column, so I'll say it extends up to okay, first or second lumbar vertebrae. Second lumbar vertebrae, and okay, from here the vertebral canal will be occupied by the spinal nerves. Okay, so from first or second lumbar vertebrae, and from here onwards the rest of vertebral canal is occupied by spinal nerves. Occupied by spinal nerves. Okay, so we'll see about that last portion of the spinal cord. So next, the posteriorly the spinal cord will end in a cone-like structure. So posteriorly it ends in a cone-like structure, and this is called conus medullaris. So it's called conus medullary. So this is a posterior cone like structure of spinal cord. Okay, so and of course we know from here there will be spinal nerves. Okay, so here the spinal nerves. Okay, now extending from this conus medullaris, there will be fine thread like non-nervous tissue. So that non-nervous tissue is actually an extension of pia mater. So you will see an extension of okay, pia mater. Okay, and this forms right phylum terminal. It forms the phylum terminal, and from this posterior part we see okay, some nerves arising from this point. Okay, so all these nerves, okay, give an appearance like a horse tail. So that's why it's called cauda equina. It's called cauda equina. So this is how we see in the posterior part of the spinal cord, right? So here I would like to show some pictures. You can see on the right left side the spinal cord. Okay, so in the transfer section you can see that butterfly shape, okay, the gray matter. So you can see this is the gray matter here, okay, and the white matter outside it, and you can see how the spinal nerves arise. And I told you that the spinal cord is covered by, okay, three meninges, just like how we see in case of brain. So this is dura mater, the outer one, so outer meninx. The next one, the arachnoid, and the innermost one, that is the pia mater. And you can, here in this you can also see the blood vessels that's being supplied, okay, to the okay, spinal cord. And you can also see here this small groove is the posterior median sulcus, which I have already mentioned it. And here at this center is the central canal that is filled with the CSF, and this is the anterior median fissure. Okay, right, so that's an anterior view and even the transfer section through the spinal cord. Now coming onto the right side, here you can see I told you that the spinal cord ends with the conus medullaris. Okay, so here, okay, you can see a conus medullaris, okay, and from that there is an extension of this okay, meninx, and that is called phylum terminal. And from there, okay, from the end you can see lot of nerves arising, and they all, okay, will constitute, okay, something called cauda equina. Right, so this is all about the spinal cord. In the next session we will see about spinal reflexes also. Okay, uh, right, so before I end, I would like to tell a few more points. So as here I mentioned a butterfly shape of this right gray matter, so I can also say uh, the gray matter will be in head-shaped letter. Okay, so I mean in, okay, alphabet head-shaped, it will be gray matter. And again we will see two enlargements, two enlargements, okay, along the spinal cord at two different locations. One will be at okay, cervical region, and another one will be at lumbar region. So we call cervical enlargement and lumbar enlargement. Cervical and lumbar enlargement. So here coming to this cervical enlargement, I'll just mention here. So this I'll call as a superior cervical enlargement. Cervical enlargement. So this superior cervical enlargement will give off branches to upper limbs. So it gives off branches to upper limbs, branches to upper limbs, and this will be extending from fourth cervical vertebra to, okay, first thoracic vertebra. And coming to the second one, that is the lumbar enlargement, I call it inferior lumbar enlargement. called inferior lumbar enlargement. So this inferior lumbar enlargement will be present between ninth, okay, to 12th thoracic vertebra. Between 12th thoracic vertebra, and this one gives off branches to lower limb. So it gives off branches to lower limbs. So that's all about the spinal cord. In the next session, we'll see about reflex action and reflex arc, and also we will see about peripheral nervous system.